I call this meeting of the Alvin Independent School District to order. Let the record show that the quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. First thing we'll do is open forum, and no one has signed up. So next we'll go to request to consider approval of employment of personnel.
Okay, so board, the first request is employment of personnel, and the majority of these are teachers for our campuses. You've been provided an updated list with the most recent recommendations for hire for teachers and staff.
So do we have a motion to be granted for requested personnel items as presented?
I'll make a motion.
I have a trustee Tonini,
Second.
second by trustee Peterson. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. I know our campus principals are going to appreciate that as well.
Next, we will have request to consider approval of administrative appointments.
Okay, so our first recommendation for an administrative appointment is for our principal at Walt Disney Elementary. The committee recommends to the board for consideration Ms. Julie Gray. Julie has 30 years of experience in Alvin ISD as an educator and an administrator. She's currently serving as the assistant principal at Walt Disney Elementary and has been in this position for the past 4 years. She previously served Alvin ISD as a classroom teacher in grades pre-K, 2nd, and 5th grade at Alvin Primary and at Passmore Elementary. And she also served as a reading intervention teacher at Passmore Elementary. The committee's confident that Ms. Gray is the best candidate to lead the staff through this pandemic and students at Walt Disney Elementary.
Do we have a motion for Julie Gray to be granted a principal at Walt Disney Elementary?
So
By trustee Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
By trustee Pickering. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
And Ms. Gray's. I will say that Ms. Tribble was one of her references, and she spoke very highly of Ms. Gray's abilities and her leadership, especially in the reading language arts realm at Walt Disney. So we look forward to great things and continue great things at Walt Disney Elementary. So congratulations. Okay, thank you.
Got family with her too.
Yes, her husband and her sister. Come around the corner, Mom. Yeah. So if you,
Dad is here too, because he recently passed, and this is his mask.
oh, there we go.
Well,
Well, our-
congratulations.
yes,
Thank you.
congratulations. Thank you.
Nick?
Richard, you're going to have to get to work now. She's going to make you step up and help out, I'm sure. Thank you. Okay, the next position is the assistant principal at J.B. Hensler College and Career Academy. You know, recently we moved Ms. Price over, Erica Price, to be director of CTE. And so with that, we needed the assistance of assistant principal there at the campus. And our recommendation from the committee is Mr. Kyle Kettler. Kyle currently serves as the information technology teacher at JBH. Previously, he served Alvin ISD as a teacher at Alvin High School at the CTE Center. While attending SFA, Kyle was a programmer and analyst. He has 15 years of experience as an educator in Texas public schools. The committee's confident that Kyle's the best candidate to assist the administrative staff in leading the staff and students as assistant principal at JBH. And I will say that Mr. Kettler also has built lots of relationships there at the center and has been instrumental in the opening when JBH opened. So we look forward to recommending him and to the board for consideration.
Do we have a motion to approve Kyle Kettler as assistant principal at JBH Hensler College and Career Academy?
So moved.
By trustee Scheibel. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
By trustee Tonini. Sorry. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Mr. Kettler's here with us today.
confidence in me, and I promise you I'll do right by the teachers and the students there for sure this year. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, the next recommendation is for Coordinator of Advanced Academics. As you know, Ms. Lee had decided to venture out and do her own business, and so that left an opening in the advanced academic arena, and so the committee has recommended Amanda Smith. Amanda currently serves Alvin ISD as the Advanced Academic Specialist at Harvey Junior High. Previously, she taught in Pearland for 9 years, and she has 13 years of experience as an educator in Texas public schools. The committee's confident that Ms. Smith is the best candidate for the position of Coordinator of Advanced Academics.
Do we have a motion to approve Amanda Smith as Coordinator of Advanced Academics?
So moved.
Trustee Peterson, that's second by Trustee
Second.
Pickering.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
So Ms. Smith is here with us today. And Ms. Smith, didn't you go through our administrative academy, future leaders, or,
I've been through the teacher leadership
okay,
academy, yes.
great, with Dr. Combs and Ms. Burns,
Yes,
and
and then work on design teams on a.
that's right.
Like there.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next on the agenda, we have a district update.
Okay, so board, today I wanted to give you an update on our Forward 2020 plan. And, one of the things President Humberg and I were talking about is, his question was, how often is it updated on the website? And I said, well, just yesterday afternoon, updates were happening. So as soon as the group, whatever work group is working on that, gets the information to communications, then they automatically update it. So it's a continual document that, it's a working document. And so we anticipate even new things coming out in the future that we will have to update. But when we do, if it's major things, we will update the board with that as well. And then through the weekly, we will also give weekly updates. But let me go over some things that I think are critical or that have happened since the last time we met. So we met with our principals last week, and we had a really good working session with them. What we did was we talked to them about our proposal for changing the calendar, which was based upon the feedback that we got from all stakeholders. We surveyed our parents, our community, we surveyed our staff, we surveyed our principals individually, because they're the ones that are what I call on the front lines, that are working with the staff and the parents and the students on a daily basis. And then we surveyed the rest of the staff in the district. And so the results were, I don't have them in front of me, I think I've shared some of that in the past, but the results were that we push our date back. It was very close, it was like 52 to 48, 52% if you added the August dates together, wanted an August start date. And so the latest start date on the survey was August the 24th. So we chose that because the 48% chose September 8th. So since the majority wanted an August date, we picked the latest August date to recommend. So with that, then we went back, Mr. Shaw, who oversees our development of our calendar, and our academics team, Dr. Valdez and cabinet, we went back and said, okay, if this is what we do, and we got with Ms. Butler on the professional learning piece, when does our staff start, and what does that look like? So in order to get 187 days for our teachers, which is the minimum amount of days that the state says that teachers have to work, we had to go back then to August 12th for all staff. So we're bringing in new teachers, which typically we do 3 days. We're doing 2 days of new teacher that's brand new to the district. It may not be a brand new teacher, like a first year teacher, but it's any new staff to the district. So they'll come back, and I have it up on the screen as well, but you also have a copy in front of you. So we will bring new teachers back, and Ms. Butler and Ms. Burns are designing professional learning for the new teachers on that day, and that's on August 10th and 11th. And this will provide them support to start their career. So they'll get some curriculum, those types of things. And then they will join the remainder of the staff for all the safety training and the protocols, because we want them to be as ingrained in them as it is in all of our staff. So on August the 12th through the 14th, all campus staff and faculty return. All staff professional learning on safety protocols, both district-wide and campus. Instructional training will occur during these days, because the following week, August the 17th to the 21st, will also be professional learning as well. So we'll have district training, but we'll also have campus-specific training, where teachers can get in and work with each other and work with the campus staff on where do we bring in kindergartners? Where do we bring in the fifth graders on campus? And I'm using an elementary campus. High school, which entrances are we going to use so that we can stagger, and what does it look like? So each campus is going to be specific, and each campus we asked to develop a team, which we said your current crisis team is probably your best team because they have specialized training, but work with them to help. What does it look like if there's a case of COVID on campus? Of course, they're going to have the final decisions will be made at the district level, because like Mr. Gesh works so closely, and our lead nurse, Katrina Weber, and Dr. Bruton, they work closely with all the health officials. So the final decisions on what happens when there's a case on campus will be specific to lots of different factors. So we are going to use the close contact, which is in all of our documents. So let's say a student or a staff member tests positive, or presumed, but tests positive for COVID. There is the close contact definition that the CDC and TEA both use. And so what happens is, was there a direct exposure and the teacher or the student was not wearing a mask? And there'll be lots of questions. So where were they in the room? Were they at the guided reading table? Were they at the lab table? Where were they in the room? Who was around them? So the best person to ask is the teacher in the classroom. Who were they around if it was a teacher? But if it was the student, you're going to ask the teacher, where was the student in the room? But you're also going to question that student as to who were you working with? Did you have masks on? Were you coughing? Were you sneezing? So there's lots of different protocols you go through in every case. It's not like we can put on here every specific case, but TEA is going to come out with what they call a guidebook with different scenarios, like if this happens, then this. And so we've been waiting for the guidebooks, but we've also been talking through different scenarios with Mr. Gesh and Dr. Bruton. And so we'll be doing more of that with our principals, because that's the question right now. What happens if there's a case on my campus? Does it close it down? Most likely a case on a campus is not going to close it down. Some districts have put a specific amount, like I think I shared one district did 10% of that campus would have to test positive in order to shut the campus down. Well, 10% at Alvin High School is quite a large number, right? And they have a lot of outdoor space. So 10% at Alvin High School, we would probably be saying, wow, we really need to close this campus down. But 10% at another campus, we just felt like that's a lot of cases on a campus, that we wouldn't go over 10%, but it might be less than 10% before. I'm thinking she's telling me I need to put this on. But 10%, now does that sound different?
Yeah.
10% on a campus to us seemed like it was a lot. And so we don't have a specific number. It's going to be based upon that campus, the geographical design, where we're seeing the cases. So let's say there's a breakout in sixth grade, the sixth grade hallway. Then we might have to shut down the sixth grade hallway, and those kids would flip to be virtual learners during that time that we were closed down and cleaning that hallway. So we might not close down the whole school, because maybe seventh and eighth grade, there's not any in there in a different area of the school. And so our goal is to keep kids as contained as we can in areas. Just like on the plan on August the 24th, when we bring back, now all staff comes back for the training on August the 12th through the 21st. But on August the 24th, all students are going to begin online instruction. During that time, teachers are going to be in their instructional classrooms teaching. Any students on campus, if it's due to they don't have connectivity or it's teachers' kids, we will have other areas in the building designated as virtual learner centers. So we will have other staff supervising them while they're learning online. The teachers in the classroom will not have face-to-face kids at that point unless they're like a special ed self-contained classroom. And Dr. Bruton's working with her special ed teachers and their department on who reports back. But it's really the self-contained classrooms, and they're doing that right now through ESY. I don't know if y'all are done yet, but.
Yeah, we finished last Thursday.
Okay, so they completed last Thursday. So some of her staff has already had a face-to-face return. So there'll be limited students, like that's an example. But for instance, teachers' kids will be in a separate location. They won't be sitting in their parents' classroom because, let's use an example, if you have a 5th grade teacher who's teaching science and they have a kindergartner. The kindergartner's going to need mom's attention. Well, so do those students on virtual learning. That's why that kindergartner's going to be in a learner center on campus. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So initially that first week, we will have back the teachers, of course, will be in their classrooms teaching virtually, and all students who need connectivity, the special ed students who are served primarily in self-contained classrooms. And then we may have students that we talked about with hardship, and that's on a case-by-case basis with the principals. So principals will be able to make those decisions on a case-by-case basis. The other question came up about providing students with devices. And we talked about we have devices across the district that students use on campus. If there is a hardship, we ask that the parent reach out to the principal on that campus. In addition to, we've purchased some additional Chromebooks and hotspots. So just like in the spring, we did loan out some devices and some hotspots. We can do that on a case-by-case basis, but it may be that that parent wants the child to come there. We can't loan out all of our devices because we're going to have kids who are at the campus learning during those first 3 weeks virtually. Does that make sense? But we are in the process of purchasing additional devices and hotspots. Hotspots are on back order right now. And then the week of August the 31st through September the 4th, and the following week, September the 8th through the 11th, this is when I go back to the principal meeting last week where it became like a work session. They worked on, and we're not ready to release it because we're meeting tomorrow again to firm up and make sure. But we have an elementary plan, a junior high plan, and a high school plan of how do we phase kids back in. So for elementary, they chose different grade levels that they want to bring in on each day. So let's just say, for example, they bring in 3rd and 5th graders. They may come for 2 days, and that way then they can work out the logistics and practice safety protocols and training and those types of things on those first couple of days. Then those kids at elementary would go back home or go back to their learner center based on wherever they are for virtual learning until September the 14th. Does that make sense? That's how elementary worked their plan. So once they get to bringing back kindergarten and pre-K, they will stay and then build back the other grade levels. That's how they want it to work. It was strictly up to the principals with what they thought was best for, but they're all going to do the same schedule. So
All elementary schools?
all elementary. The principals worked in small groups because elementary, we have so many schools. They worked in small groups and then they came back together and decided on a plan. And like I said, they're still kind of working, making sure that this is what they want finalized. So we're meeting with them again tomorrow. So we're hoping that either tomorrow afternoon or Thursday, the phase-in plans will be released.
And can I ask a question? It's
Sure.
probably obvious, but the children who have enrolled in virtual learning, will they be coming too, or no? Just the kids who have chosen face-to-face during that phase-in thing?
So if they've chose AVL,
Oh.
then they would not come during those times.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
strictly AVL.
Okay.
And so that's a great question, Trustee Scheibel. So those students that chose AVL will remain in AVL.
Okay.
So they'll never, not at this point, they won't be coming into the phase-in, it'll just be face-to-face.
Right. It'll just be those that chose.
And the date that face-to-face begin, or face-to-face phasing in begins is what?
The first week that we're beginning the phase-in is August the 31st. So August 24th is all online or virtual learning. And then August the 31st, they'll start their phase-in of groups. So like in junior high, I would anticipate they're going to bring their sixth graders. And they may bring them for 2 to 3 days and practice, because they've never been on campus, and practice safety protocols and expectations, and everyone's wearing a mask. And same thing for elementary, everyone's wearing a mask. And so we'll get back to that in a minute. But so they will come in. Well, junior high, the difference is they want to keep their kids and build on it, because they're doing block scheduling. So they want to get their, let's say, sixth graders back, then they'll add the next layer of seventh graders, and then finally the eighth graders will come in. So they're building upon that. And there is, on both of those schedules, there's one Friday that they're going to call a virtual Friday, where no one will be there. I mean, there won't be a grade level there. That way they can adjust, they can reflect and review their processes. What do we need to change? It kind of gives them that time to make adjustments as needed on that virtual Friday. And then high school has been looking at, again, bringing back a grade level, but doing it based on alpha. So knowing that, you could have 900 ninth graders or freshmen, how do you do it in a controlled way, social distancing, making sure everyone's wearing their masks? So they'll bring them back in alpha groups, and then they will add on like another grade level. So high school is probably the most challenging, scheduling that many students, and then also working their master schedule for virtual as well as for face-to-face. So as soon as we get those ready, then we'll post those, and we anticipate, our goal is by Thursday that we have them posted, right, Dr. Valdez?
Or Friday.
Thursday or Friday. End of the week, that's a good, end of the week.
And master schedules, as in every school year, they're right up to the last minute to where, so,
More so than ever this year.
yeah.
So, I could not do a high school master schedule, but I know the process that they go through. And right now, they've been meeting pretty much every day. We've got our counselors meeting, our lead counselors. There was a great session yesterday where they met at JBH to talk about how do they fit all of that in as well, because we have to remember every high school feeds to JBH. JBH will be a unique campus in the fact that we have upper level courses there that require hands-on skills, right? Welding, cosmetology, I mean, several. So JBH will probably be more students on I don't see more as in numbers, but meaning that students will frequent JBH frequently due to those upper level CTE courses. That makes sense. So master schedule, like Dr. Valdez was saying, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the process or just kind of where they are. Sure.
So, on the master schedule, really the first thing that they had to start working through was what courses could be offered.
Oh, there's a button.
Okay, so what?
Yep.
So the first thing they had to start looking at for the ABL students is what courses could even be offered. And I'm happy to say right now, looking at this butler, most of our courses are going to be able to do through ABL with some tweaks and changes, and maybe a little less time that they need to be on campus than if they actually were there. But that's kind of the first step, is looking at those courses. Now, when you think of a normal master schedule time, we use computer systems for master schedules. The computers, once the schedule's in, we line it up with course requests, students get a schedule. Then they have to go in and make tweaks on some individual students, right? For our ABL students, they're having to do these by hand. And our current ADL numbers are up to about 9,500 kids district-wide. For just high school, I don't have that in here. For high school, we have about 2,700 kids district-wide. So those are going to have to be hand-scheduled, phone calls made, things like that. And so it's just put a little more challenge on the master scheduling process, but in my opinion, so many good things can come because it's going to give a lot of touch points with kids and really looking at their schedules and matching it. You know, we always need kind of audit time to match up endorsements and making sure kids are working towards a certain endorsement. And this is going to highlight that even more. So that's all a positive that, you know, we can't talk about that many positives sometimes that come out of this, but that's a positive. So that's kind of just where they are right now. And that work is going to be ongoing for several weeks, but parents are going to start to get phone calls to talk about their students if changes have to be made, but also to talk about the aspect that Mrs. Nelson mentioned, that if you're a student in an upper level advanced JBH class, if you're choosing ADL, you need to know that this does mean there are sometimes they're going to have to come up to the campus. And if a parent's not comfortable with that, then they shouldn't do ADL, because that's going to be part of the requirement with that. It won't be every week, it won't be, you know, numerous times a week, but there will be those times that has to happen. So, do you have any questions about that master schedule process right now?
I have a question, sort of related, well, I think it is. Anyway, so if a student is in high school and has chosen AVL and AP European History is not, it probably will be, but is not available on AVL, is there a possibility for that student to go to a campus for that one class? No. Okay. That would be hybrid, and we're not doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
And when you mention a course such as that, just as always, our courses that end up being offered will still be driven by enrollment numbers. So
Yeah.
if we had, you know, a minimal amount of students that wanted one that we talk about a lot is AP Music Theory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we typically don't have a ton of kids that want that. The years that we do, we offer it. But we wouldn't have it to where we offer and then they come up some days now.
Okay.
And
But I will say what we are trying to work out a little bit is, there may be some instances with some kind of singleton classes like that where we could have a teacher doing a little bit of teaching face-to-face and having kids online. That wouldn't be an across-the-board thing. That's a lot on a teacher. But we have some teachers that are saying, hey, I could do this for my kids, you know, because they want to do the best that they can for kids. So there's going to be some situations where we might be able to make that work
Okay.
versus them coming out to the class.
Okay.
And, you know, I could foresee this is more of a high school because of the variety of course offerings. One of the things is we want to make sure that safety is our number one priority. If we have multiple kids coming and going that aren't on the face-to-face, it just creates concern for administrators if they're trying to control who's moving about the building. If we have people coming and going, because honestly, those front doors, I mean, they're going to be open for the public to come into the front office, but we're not going to have kids moving and going in and out. That's why we said no lunch deliveries, no visitors, that type of thing, unless they're there for business and they pretty much have an appointment like an ARD or a meeting with a teacher. The movement on campus we're trying to really limit. And so if we opened it up till we had kids coming during the school day, that would be, you know, hard to control on a safety.
And it'll work the same for areas such as athletics and fine arts, where the student will still be scheduled in the course, but they won't come up for that course. There will have to still be some online instruction that has to happen, but they could come up for the after-school practices, competitions, things like that. But they won't come and go throughout the day either to their courses.
Can I ask about athletics? Are we completely like waiting and beholden to UIL, or is Alvin ISD creating some sort of guidelines and and recommendations in regards to that, like coming after school for practice or?
So I'll probably ask Mr. Gesh in a minute to join in, but last week we had a UIL meeting with our classification groups. So like superintendents broke into groups so I was in the 5A, 6A group, and the majority of them, unless there's a few districts that are doing nothing, we're continuing SAC or strength and conditioning, which is what UIL is saying we can do our summer. We're continuing that, and then we'll move into practicing once we get students back on September 14th, correct? Or September, okay. 8th. 7th is a Labor Day. So because we'll have students back on campus through our phase-in, then they can start their practices at that time. Now, what we have realized is that we may end up, and I didn't realize this, but if a school is not able, we have a schedule worked out, and the athletic directors are really working together on this to make it all happen. But if we have our football schedule and let's say A-Leaf's not able to participate due to some reason, then they forfeit the game. Does that make sense? But right now, we do have Coach Bass and his team have a schedule worked out. It's just how is that going to affect when some districts don't open the same time as we do? I will say that Ms. Butler's worked with the Fine Arts Department, and the band has decided not to participate in marching competition this year. Is that correct?
Right,
UIL marching competition. So this year would have been a 6A. And so then the question came up, and one of the superintendents that serves on the UIL, Dr. Henry from Sci-Fair, one of the questions that we asked him was to take back, now could we then have both 5A and 6A the following school year competition, because 6A is missing out this year if we don't participate. There are still some school districts that are going to participate in that. I believe Friendswood still is moving forward with participating, but if you only have a few, but what they will do is they'll still play at football games for entertainment per se, or for fight songs and things of that nature. So they will participate in that, but not in the UIL marching competition.
And I would assume that the football game playing is optional for students. It's not going to be mandatory, and they won't be, I mean, maybe that's a campus question.
So you mean like for the students? Like if they're in football, that they'll be required to participate?
If they're in marching band and the band's playing at the football game, because that's close quarters. I mean, that's difficult to socially distance and all.
So if they're an AVL or a face-to-face student?
Face-to-face. I guess if they're face-to-face, they are there on purpose. Okay.
I mean, that can be a question that Ms. Butler works with the band directors. I don't know if those specifics have been discussed yet or not.
We haven't, but we'll pose that question. My quick assumption is if they're face-to-face, the assumption would be that they could participate. But if they're virtual, I would not see us forcing that at all.
Right, right.
And I know most of us know that oftentimes after-school activities or performances are tied to grades, and we would make sure that that would not change their grade if they could not participate.
Okay, thank you.
I had one more quick question, if I may. You kind of hinted at this, but if you have a student enrolled in an AVL and the counselor needs to reach out, like in the case of JVH, and it's past August 7th, because I know people are working
Yes.
ferociously on this, but will that student be able to say, okay, I can't deal with these schedule changes, I want to go back face to face?
Yes, I mean, if it's our reason that delay is there, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes.
We even discussed, and I'm hoping I'm not speaking, that y'all haven't changed it, but even when we come back on September 14th, we would allow, by that time, if parents saw that things were going well and they felt more comfortable, we would allow, there'd be a deadline before that, probably the following week, because we'd need to know that they could exit AVL and come face-to-face. Is that, we discussed that?
They could, it may take us, they may have to do AVL a few days while we could work out that schedule, but yes,
Okay.
it's possible.
But if you have a second grader that wants to come back, that's an easier move back than to try to figure
Right.
out a high school schedule. But counselors, we definitely want to do what's best for students. That's what we're in the the business for, right, is educating students. So we never want to hinder or put up roadblocks for them. It's just a challenge trying to, like I've always said, it's like running two separate schools almost, and then to start all virtual and then flip to face, but still run AVL. That's almost like three different teaching platforms. And so the one thing that I will say is that by starting all virtual, all of our teachers are going to be trained, ready to go, that if we ever at any time have to flip to virtual learning or remote learning, they will all have experienced that. Not all of them did in the spring. Some of them did paper packets because of their students' needs at the time. Maybe they didn't have connectivity, so they maybe didn't get as much training as we would have liked in the spring because we had to flip so quickly. But now everyone will go through the Google Classroom training. Is that correct?
Yes. And we have several layers of that training, depending on what their skill level already is on Google Classroom.
So just to be clear then, any extracurricular activity, if you're AVL, you will not be able to come during the day. You can come before school or after school.
Correct.
Okay,
Outside of school hours.
okay.
With unless you were at
Oh.
the level.
Oh,
Yeah.
CTE.
Yeah.
CTE is the,
We don't consider
yeah,
those extracurricular, but yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I have a question about staffing. Who will staff those virtual learner centers?
So you want to talk
For the
about
first few
the
weeks.
process?
So it'll be up to each campus. I would guess that it's mostly going to be paraprofessionals that are staffing. And there will have to be some work done with paraprofessionals because students are going to be different grade levels, different schedules that they're working through. But they'll also be, in charge of their personal needs. They're going to have to take students for restroom breaks and to eat lunch and recess and things like that. But most likely it will be paraprofessionals. In some cases, it could be some special area teachers too.
Carol, I have a question concerning enrollment. We're still a fast growth district, even though we're in a pandemic. And so last year, we saw schools like Manville High School and Shadow Creek High School that were still enrolling 100-plus kids, even after the school start date, right? The first 2 weeks of school, we were still enrolling a lot of children. So what happens if somebody's enrolling past the August 24th date? Do they choose AVL or face-to-face? What happens with the late enrollments?
So they will be able to have a choice just like everyone else. They'll have to set up an appointment. Even through our enrollment center this summer, Mr. Shaw oversaw that, did a great job with, this was our first year that we did an enrollment center for the district. And so they had appointments that they would set up, and so we'll handle it just like we have in the past, where they'll have to set up an appointment, they'll meet with a counselor, determine, what coursework and what pathway that they're on, and then they'll have a choice to enter either AVL or face-to-face at that time, or virtual if it's those first 3 weeks.
Okay, so those enrollments will be by appointment only?
I'm pretty sure, right, Mr. Shaw? He's been working closely with the campuses.
So what we're doing currently at the enrollment center, it was appointment only. We've asked campuses, because of COVID, health procedures, to go ahead and continue that at the campus. We've enrolled well over 1,000 students at the enrollment center. We have about 500 students that have done the online enrollment, and campuses are currently contacting them to schedule those appointments as well.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of enrollment, are we still enrolling early childhood students?
Yes.
Are we?
Are you talking about early childhood with special needs?
No, it's just early
Just early
childhood in
childhood,
general,
yes,
yes.
yes,
We
absolutely.
are, we're still taking them.
Just like all students.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So our options program will still be available as well, right, Mr. Gesh? And then ADAPT, he's working with Ms. Ruiz on if they're going to be AVL and if that time counts toward their disciplinary action or not. Those are questions that still TEA is working out and addressing. They haven't really, that's been one of our questions recently, and TEA hasn't really come out with how that is going to look, at least so.
I should have said in pre-K. Are we still enrolling pre-K? I'm
Yes.
so
Pre-K,
sorry.
I knew what you
It's the
meant.
same thing in my mind. It's
Yes.
it's the little ones, yes. Are we,
We-
are still enrolling?
Yes.
We're
We
still
are still
enrolling?
enrolling.
Okay.
I don't
still
know
taking
currently
applications. Mm-hmm.
what our numbers look like there. Mr. Shaw, off the top of your head, do you know?
Not off the top of my head, we remember that number.
Very tough.
Because they were
Yeah,
low,
it is.
but
Yeah, we've enrolled, because we had to be creative in May for our pre-K roundup, right? So we had them send the folders over to the Central Enrollment Center. So we've been doing that. We've completed all those enrollments, and we've also been enrolling pre-K students in the Enrollment Center.
Very good.
It still have all the qualifications, right? Pre-K, half-day at your non-title campuses, and then full-day pre-K at your title campuses plus Bell Sanchez. And then also for our, even our campuses that have full-day, if they've chosen that ADL, then they'll only be half-day.
Okay.
Now, what's a little bit different with that is starting the first 3 weeks virtual. If I'm a pre-K student at a campus that has full day, I'm still gonna participate full day, just so they still feel what that feels like when they come face to face. It will be very developmentally appropriate. The afternoons will probably be a lot of playtime and doing different activities that don't involve a computer and things like that. Because we don't think a full day of pre-K doing online is in the best interest of students. But we know for those that are gonna come face to face and do full day, they need to already be in that routine from the start of school. So we're gonna make adjustments for those.
So our AVL will have, our teachers will have a schedule, and through the training, the advanced training, they were given a schedule, and then we're going to go through it and explain it with principals tomorrow of what that schedule looks like. But they'll still have a break. They'll still have their conference time. They'll still have a lunch time on their schedule. But I think a couple of them were like, wow, we have a set schedule. It's just, it mirrors what it is like in face-to-face classroom as well, because if any of those students pivot back to face-to-face, they need to be, I mean, it's not any more rigorous than the face-to-face. It's actually the same curriculum and same expectations, because we have to make it, we have to keep it, you know, consistent because of the GPA, right? We want parents to know that AVL students receive the same instruction, and we want our AVL parents to know their children are getting the same instruction and quality of education and experiences that our face-to-face are getting. So we're really trying hard with our staff to make all of that happen. Same curriculum, same TEKS, same expectations, same assessments, those types of things. Any other questions on that piece? Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about mask, because that's the big question. And we went back, and I even think it's been updated on the web, and it may not be in your paper packet. In your paper packet, it says encouraged. It depends on the level of transmission that we're at, but we are starting, regardless of the level of transmission, expecting everyone, requiring everyone to wear a mask. Now, some people said, what about kids under the age of 10? Right now, our document says first grade through 12th grade. They've had a lot of stuff on the news lately about masks, and we're asking, just like school supplies, just like we ask kids, parents to make sure their kids come with shoes and things of that nature, to have a mask that fits your child. Because every face, every mask, we all have different masks on, and we're all comfortable with certain ones. We will have additional masks for those kids that don't show up with one. We will give that out, but they're disposable. They're kind of like what I have on. So it's not something a kid's going to wear forever, and especially if they have a cold or whatever it is they have, that mask can get dirty very easily with elementary kids. But our expectations, we are going to require masks from now until, I mean, I can't give you an end date. We'll watch transmission, but our expectations is we're thinking we'll be wearing masks all fall semester. That's what our expectations are. There will be times when you won't maybe see someone with the mask on, but it could be specific to that person. There could be a medical case, and they are having to provide documentation to human resources for that. It's not just because I don't feel like wearing one. One of the questions that came up last week with TEA was, can we pivot is the new word. Can we pivot a child from face-to-face to our AVL learning if they refuse to wear a mask? And the answer was yes, we could. So if we give them a couple of warnings and say, you need to wear your mask, and it's the same child over and over, we can contact the parent and say, look, now that child's going to have to to pivot to AVL because they're now putting other people at risk. And so we'll take it on a case-by-case basis, but do know that there are some of our special needs students who cannot keep a mask on. We don't know what pre-K is going to be able to do or kinder. We're going to work with them on trying to, some parents will ask that we keep a mask on their child, right? But our expectation is that regardless of where you are right now in the district, everyone is expected to have a mask on.
And on that, when you're talking about kindergarten and pre-K, I know, like, my pre-K teachers have called their attention and said, talk to the parents and say, hey, start working with your child now. You know, so don't wait till the day at school. Start working with your child now. So that's a big thing we need to have parents do too, is start having their children wear masks, you know, teaching them how to do that too. Not just wait for the first day of school, because then I don't think it's going to work for pre-K, you know, so.
Well, I heard this morning on the news, someone said, practice with your child, even if they're a virtual learner, to wear a mask while they're in virtual learning at home, so that the parent can then, or the grandparent or whoever, can work with that child on how to wear it appropriately and getting used to wearing it. I know that Miss Flores, one of our summer school teachers, that was one of the things she encouraged her fellow teachers was start now before you come back, because that's the hardest thing to get used to, is wearing it all day long. Of course, they're going to take it off when they eat, right? And so there'll be few times, if they're in PE doing physical exercise, like running a track, they probably aren't going to have their mask on during that time. But if they're, for some reason, and we're not starting out in the gym, but if they start out in a gym, they would have their mask on if it was just low impact type things, activities. But if they're physically exerting, it's difficult to wear a mask during those times.
Carol, will a face shield qualify as a mask?
So it depends on the situation. So if they're doing guided reading or dyslexia or speech therapy, they would have a face shield most likely, because they're having to see their mouths and how they're forming their words or things of that nature. But just walking and moving about the building, we want the mask and not just a face shield. So.
And just to make sure, we have masks. We will have masks for employees.
Well, so we
No,
have
see-
some, if they don't have their own mask,
Right. And
we
like you
do
said, some-
have masks.
Yeah,
that
some
we
people
can-
are not comfortable with that, and they have their own mask.
Right.
But we cannot supply 27,000 masks or over 27,000 masks every day for kids. So it's going to be parents' responsibility to make sure their kids have a mask. But like you said, that if for some reason the kid shows up without a mask, we will have a mask, but we can't supply 27,000 every day, right?
We don't have the supply chain for that.
Okay.
The state provided us probably with a month's supply if we were to give somebody one every day. But I anticipate, again, that people will show up with their own. Questions? Okay, so in your packet also, I included what we call a health plan, and this is a working document. This is not something that will be forward-facing, meaning out on the internet. It will eventually be intranet, so employees will have access to it. There are certain documents that your district has internally for the employees, but it's not going to be an outward-facing plan. Everything in the plan, however, is shared. The major pieces of it are shared in our Forward 2020. This just gets more detailed. This is more of what we're working on with Health Department. Dr. Bruton, again, Katrina Weber, our lead nurse, Mr. Gesh, and it will be updated as we get more information. For instance, last week, we got new guidelines from the CDC. So we're waiting to see how TEA responds to that, and we're updating our documents as fit for the new CDC guidelines. One of the questions, again, I'll go back to that close contact. If you have a student who's sitting at a table and everyone's wearing their mask, then if that child tests positive, you're cleaning the room, you're cleaning everywhere that child's been. That's why we want to know, where did they eat lunch? Where did they use the restroom? So everything gets deep clean. But those other kids sitting there, as long as they all had their mask on, they do not have to quarantine. Does that make sense? So unless they start developing symptoms, then they would. And then there's also in this health plan right now, and it's an internal document that I included for the board, but there is a chart, a flow chart that our nurses will be using, and it's pretty detailed. They've done a great job. I think it's in this health plan. It's a colored chart. Well, yours is probably black and white, but it's a very detailed chart that says, what if this symptom, then what do I do and what do I do? So the nurses, again, are our experts on campus if there's questions about child's symptoms. So if a child has a runny nose, that doesn't necessarily mean that he has COVID. But if a child has diarrhea and a fever, that child's going home, right? And so the nurses working along with campus administration, Mr. Gesh, Dr. Bruton, then they will make decisions based on, what's best for the campus, but also what's best for that child. Does that make sense? That's why it's not easy just to put out, if this happens, because there are flow charts in lots of different scenarios. But again, safety is our number one priority with our students. We're going to err on the side of caution. But again, Dr. Bruton and I have had this conversation. We can't send half the school home because they have a runny nose, because we all know kids have runny noses, especially during allergy seasons and in the winter time, kids get colds. So any questions on that? But I did provide you a copy of this, and it will be, like I said, eventually it will be on our intranet, inward facing for employees.
One thing, and that's why I asked you the question about when these were updated, because I know, and I've seen online some comments and questions about things, and what I read today may be totally different tomorrow. So I would encourage everybody to not just read it this week and assume that's what it is, because I've seen those comments, and the document has completely changed the next day, but people are still making the comments of this is what's going on, this is what's going on. So encourage everybody, look at this every day.
So the other documents that I gave you were the frequently asked questions. And what we've started doing on the website, it doesn't reflect it on the document that's printed out, but on the website, Rachel Moore puts a date if an area has been updated. So she may put 7/28/20, and that means that that's something new that's been updated. Because
I noticed that. That was really good. I
yeah,
appreciated that.
it helps to see, because if not, you're reading through it and you're thinking, okay, what did it say? And so it identifies the things that have been updated. It makes it easier for not only the public, but our staff to also reviews it and looks at it to see what's been updated.
I have another question. When was the last time and how often are y'all meeting with the Brazoria County Health Department?
So it was either Wednesday or Thursday that we had a Zoom meeting. All the superintendents in Brazoria County met with Judge Sebesta, Kathy, who's the director of the health department there, one of their doctors, and then a civil attorney joined in on the call and provided some guidance. So Rory talked to the health department yesterday about the updated CDC guidelines. So I would say at least 2 to 3 times a week, someone is in contact with the health department. And I'm not certain, Katrina, I know, is involved with Region 4 health calls, which then, also trigger to our health department. So I'd be safe to say maybe daily, Julie, at least 2 to 3 times a week, though.
Okay.
But I've had Zoom meetings, though, frequently with Judge Sebesta and Kathy, the director of health services there. Harris County is different from Brazoria County. And last week, Brazoria County did mention that they knew that Harris County had a higher outbreak per se than Brazoria County. Our numbers have been up, but they were encouraged last week that most of the results that we're getting are lagging a couple of weeks. So they're hoping that the trend is coming down, and that if with the masks now that everyone's been wearing, that it will continue to decrease. But we're hopeful, but we're cautious as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Rory, was there anything you wanted to add?
Pretty well covered it.
Okay. Dr. Bruton, anything health-wise?
They're not doing any
So at one time, and I'll talk to, remind me, Dr. Bruton, to talk to you about that, because we had an option one time to have someone come to us to offer those immunizations. So maybe we can look into that as well for our students who are economically disadvantaged that goes, they go to the health department to get their immunizations. Any
A
other?
lot of good information, a lot of good information. And like I said, I know it's an everyday changing document, so appreciate what y'all do.
We call it a live working document. It's continually updated. Any other questions or anything that you all would like us to look into, or concerns from any board members, concerns about the plan?
I really appreciate you changing the word expected to required for masks. I really do. Thank you. That's good.
I'll second that. Thank you. And I appreciate all the information. Thank you. Just my own personal experience, the reaction and the comfort level in the community seems to be much more relaxed, and they feel like they understand what's happening and are appreciative.
I know last week, Dr. Valdez, Mr. Gesh, and Ms. Rives met with our little parent group that reviews everything, again, probably for 2 or 3 hours, and they went through line by line, and they were able to give great feedback, and they felt, like you said, Ms. Scheibel, that they were very, comfortable and excited about the direction of some of the changes we had made. And so they're a good voice to what they're hearing from other parents and concerns. And so they took copious notes, and we even went back and said, okay, how do we clarify this? Or we hadn't thought of that, or let's look at that in through a different lens. As I told our principals last week, we've all been working so closely together since March, since this happened, right? And sometimes you can get tunnel vision because you're so into the details of what you're getting coming from every direction that you don't see what maybe somebody else sees. So that was a big thing with our principals last week, was talk to us. Tell us what you're here. Tell us what you're concerned about. Tell us what your staffs are concerned. And so it was really good to be together and not just on a Zoom or a Google Meets meeting with them, because it was a different feeling in the room. We all had our masks on. We were all socially distanced. And so there was an energy in the room of cautious but excited to get school started for our kids again, and to provide them with these engaging activities and connect with our students again. So very excited to move forward with that. And again, if y'all have any questions, feel free. I know our Let's Talk and our emails that we've been getting this time since we've released this plan have been overwhelmingly positive toward the August 24th date. And starting, we have had a few that, I'm sure they were the ones that voted for the September 8th is why we didn't. But we felt like we have a good plan to start, and to then start some of those safety protocols and safety training with our staff.
Well done.
Any other questions or comments? Thank y'all for what y'all do. I know it's a tough job ordinarily, and even tougher now. And, it's a day-to-day operation, and thank y'all for doing what y'all do. All right, we'll move on to request consider approval of proposed Alvin ISD 2021 calendar.
So Board, this is the calendar that was put together based on principal feedback, all stakeholders' feedback, community, staff, and it has the start date of August the 24th, like we said. Again, you can see the days, the 10th and the 11th are for new teachers. The 12th is when all staff would return, and they would receive some district training as well as campus training for about a week and a half there. And then virtual learning would begin on August the 24th. We would have, as we've always had, the Labor Day off on September 7th. We left our Collaboration Day in there on the 9th, and then Columbus Day off on the 12th, which coincides with the county fair. if they hold it still, which I think they are planning still. Our kids are raising their animals, so I anticipate that will move forward as long as the health conditions transmission remains at a level that's currently and doesn't exceed. And then November is Thanksgiving week. And then in December, we have the half-day on the 18th prior to what we call our holiday break. And then in January, the 1st would be a holiday, and then the 4th would be a professional learning day, getting back, teachers coming back, staff on campus. And then we would have Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. And then February, another collaboration day, and President's Day as a holiday, then spring break. And then in April, there is a holiday, I'm anticipating that's probably Good Friday. And then we have a trade, what we call an exchange trade day for teachers having done some professional development outside of their contract. They trade out there on April the 23rd, and then May, concluding school, half a day on the 28th. That Monday, Memorial Day is a holiday, and then we have 2 trade days. What this calendar does is we've added 15 minutes to each campus's, and it adds time in over that 75,600 minutes so that we have days built in if for some reason we have a weather day or we have to close due to COVID-19. So that adds additional days into the calendar that we didn't have to extend it further into June. But we don't know. We never would have anticipated we'd be sitting here last year at this time with what we went through in the spring. So we'll, adjust and adapt should that happen, but I feel like we have a solid plan going forward for our staff. And I will say that several of the staff members reached out and said, thank you for not having us go deep into June, because going through this year, we know it's going to be stressful on all staff members, and keeping kids safe is our number one priority. And so anything we can do to reduce the stress level for our staff this year is going to be so important. One of the things, let me address that I just thought of that I should have back in the health plan. So you've seen some districts are allowing teachers to wear scrubs. That's not something that we want portrayed for parents to come drop their kids off and it looks like they're dropping them off at a hospital and everybody's in scrub. It's the appearance, the optics. Dr. Breeden made a really good point that we want our nurse identified on campus as the medical person, not our teachers. And so we have relaxed teacher dress code though, so our principals are working on very creative ways to do things for their teachers. Jeans will be fine. Some of them, days gone by, teachers wanted a jean pass. So some of them are doing creative things like, it was sweat out COVID or something, and they'll do sweatpants one day or something. So they're working on, our principals are working on creative ways to not reward, but to encourage things on their campuses. So we relaxed the dress codes for staff, and we've let principals kind of make that decision, but we recommend they not wear scrubs due to the appearance of everyone on campus is a medical professional, because we want our teachers seen for the beauty of what they do for our kids each day in instruction, and we want our nurses to be seen as the medical person on campus. So if you hear that, I know that was a question from some of our teachers because some other districts have done that. So.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the 2020-2021 Alvin ISD school calendar as presented?
So moved.
By trustee Harris, do we have a second?
Second.
By trustee Scheibel, any questions or comments?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so the extending hours, or minutes, excuse me, and you said that could have, we did that in the event that we have to go to virtual learning, right?
Well, that and
Or
as well as
hurricanes
to help.
or-
Yes, or it also helps us with staggering arrival times
Okay.
for students. So we may have car riders, request that car riders show up at a certain time. We may even have to, depending on how many are face-to-face, say car riders A through K come at this time,
Okay.
car riders. And then buses come in a different entrance, so Mr. Dungan, as much as possible, running 3 different school time routes, trying to get buses there on time, but we said if buses show up late, we're not counting those kids tardy that come on a bus. So we really prefer, so that 15 minutes helps for staggering start and release times, start and release, arrival and dismissals.
So with that, in the event that we have to go to full virtual, I know we're starting out that way, but if we have to go back, I love and appreciate that teachers are all trained or being trained to go virtual. What do you anticipate the turnaround time is, or the flip time is, if we have to go? Like, would it be on Friday, the governor said shut down, and on Monday, will they be ready to go virtually? Or might there be a missed day? Does that make sense?
I guess it would.
And if you haven't gotten there yet, that's okay.
Well, I guess it would depend on when that occurred. Like if it occurred in September, let's say the week of, let me look at the calendar. So we all face-to-face the 14th, but then the governor comes out on September 28th and shuts us down. They would be prepared to flip right away because they had just been doing virtual.
Okay.
So they would be prepared. But if it was, say, November or January or February, they may have to have a day to prepare for.
Because they had been
Right,
face-to-face.
because
Okay.
they'd been face-to-face and they might need time to figure out, okay, lesson-wise. But really, their lesson plan should be able to flip, and we're going to have resources like instructional videos that our AVL teachers are even creating some of those. And so we'll have a bank of resources for teachers as well.
Okay, very good, thank you.
But that gave us something new to think about. What if that happened?
You're welcome.
Put that on your list.
I was just going to say thank you. This is a very familiar calendar to our community, and I know that took effort, and I think, just well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, does anybody else have anything? And that, I make a motion to adjourn. Have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Pickering. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all. We will continue to update you as we make changes and significant.